Tusind tak. Thank you for showing up for this. I just want to make sure I got it right here. For my talk here about how consciousness and energy and water actually fit really good together. So I'd like to give you a short introduction of my background. So I have I'm an engineer, electrical engineer for the Technical University of Denmark, and then I have an enterprise architect from Carnegie Mellon. So I spent 28 years working on IT and business development. And I found out that many of the technologies that I've been working with, they are already implemented in nature. So we're actually just copying how nature is using these technologies. And that fascinated me, you know. So now when I see new technology, I spend a lot of time studying technologies to work with them as an engineer. But now when I understand how they actually work on this planet, you can say, in this universe that we're part of, I think it's much more interesting. And you know, we used to think of ourselves as a machine. You know, we come from the 1600s where Newton told us you can look at this universe as a clockwork. You know, like you had the sun and you had you know, a planet just orbiting around. So if we think about us as a machine, you know, we really lose a lot because there's no matter in this universe. It's all energy. So even what we consider matter is non-existent. So when I touch with this, I'm touching this table, you know, I have a feeling of that there's matter in this universe, right? Because I feel the hardness of it. But there is no matter. It's all vibration. It's all energy in motion. And that's what built up this universe. And that's why I think it's important that we leave this machine focus, you know, because we're not machines. We are actually energy beings. Oh. No? I thought it should work. There we are. So what if we actually are a resonant intelligent system in dialogue with the universe? And that's what I'd like to talk about today. How is it that we can say now with the knowledge we got from quantum physics that that's actually the truth? We are not a machine as we've been thinking of before quantum physics came into our knowledge, right? So the one guy who actually started it all, I would say, is Max Planck, because he told us, you know, this universe is built of energy layers, so it's actually quantized. That's why it's called quantum physics. Now, what does that mean? It means that these energy layers that the universe is built of is like a, you know, you can think of it as a spider web. So these layers are, of course, very, very thin, you know, very close to each other. They span out the entire universe. So in one of these layers, there's a possibility that a particle can be created, right? And that's going to be part of the cell that's part of me. But in the same layer, there's a lot of other people in here who has a particle and hence a cell that's living in that same energy layer. So when you think about it, if you have these layers stacked upon each other with a specific distance that Max Planck came, it's called Max Planck's constant. So these layers are actually where we built everything. Because what happens is that these layers are just, has a lot of energy in each layer, right? And suddenly you can actually have a particle that exists. So it kind of pops up from this energy layer. Now all these particles that are in my body, they are you can say in sync. So there's an intelligent communication between all the cells. So what we know is that the ability for the cells to speak together, to talk together, creates the whole body, and that's what, you know, I get an experience as having one body. I don't need to talk to every trillionth cell that I have. So having this universe built of energy layers, you know, and knowing that energy is quantized, that's actually what Einstein he used to get his Nobel Prize, because the work of Max Planck led to the work that actually gave Einstein the Nobel Prize about that energy is quantized. So this universe is not an analog universe; it's digitized. It's a digital world we were living in the sense that you can think of these energy layers as separate. So let me give you an example. When we had, an old album, a record player, right? We could have these black vinyls that we could change. We have 5 songs on each side, and we could listen to the music on that. When we went to the CD-ROM, the CD actually hold a lot more information because its shape is zeros and ones, so it's a digital approach, and that's how this universe has chosen. A digital approach is a lot better because you can store a lot more information. So just to give you an example, the records that we used to have, the vinyl, right, and then the CD-ROM. So this universe is really intelligent built, and I think that it's important that we tap into this intelligence because we're actually able to make use of it. So just to explain you how everything is built from these atoms. So you have the field, right, the vibrant energy that's just spanning out the whole universe. In that particular, in these layers, particles can emerge, right, and that builds these atoms. So the building block for everything in this universe is atoms, right? They have a nuclei and they have an electron that orbits it. So that's true for the body, the cells in my body, and it's true for this table. So it's the same building block. So you can see that I'm showing there that these molecules that comes out from these atoms actually create mountains and whatever product we invent. But it also is the foundation for the cells that creates all life. So all human beings and animals and plants. It's the same. So think about it. It's actually the same building block, these atoms. I think that's pretty profound. And what is important is that we need to be aware that it's energy that shapes matter. So actually we can say, I know this sounds a little strange, but matter doesn't exist because matter, as we think of it, we think of it as matter as something solid, right? But it's all energy. So if I need to explain, the atom is actually like a spinning tornado of energy. And when 2 tornadoes, they meet each other, they cannot penetrate. So you will have, when the energy tornadoes in my cells here meet this table, I cannot penetrate the table because of the 2 tornadoes meeting, right? But there's no solid things. And what Einstein, he said, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. I think that's the most important thing to be aware of. Let me explain you during this lecture why. But when we think about it, it's actually always energy shaping matter. Because the field around anything is actually what gives it its structure. So I usually say that the body of mine, my cells I get new skin cells every other 2 months or whatever. But in 7 years, all of my cells, 98% of my cells are actually being renewed, right? So I can say, if I show up here in 7 years, there's none of my cells here that are with me, right? But I know the energy field is around me because otherwise I'm dead. If you can't measure an energy field around the body is dead. So to me, I'm more to think of me as the energy field around the body than the body itself. So it's actually this energy field around us that structures our body. That's what gives life to these cells and these atoms. So that's why I think it's important to understand what Einstein, he said, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. Because each particle that actually is emerging from in these layers, they have their own field that gives them structure, that gives them life. And that's how it's built, So everything has this field around it to give it structure. Now, so everything is structured by energy, right? So water also is structured by energy. So when we look at water, it just is something liquid, right? But remember, there's no wet atom. All atoms are just energy in motion. But we have the sense of something being wet. But it's just a frequency that these atoms emit that we sense with our system, that we have a touch of something being wet, right? It's wet for us to touch on. So, but the thing about water is that we consist of 60 to 70% water. That's we have so much water in our bodies, right? So, and since energy is shaping it, it is pretty important what kind of field do we have around us, and are we actually exposed to the sun? Because the sun is that's a pretty cool design, I think. The sun actually, the infrared part of the sun will structure the water inside you, and that's very important for blood circulation, because it's the potential between the blood veins and the blood itself that propels the blood. So sunlight is really important. And what it does is, sunlight structures water. But what does it mean that it can structure water? So just to give you an example from how we've done it on electronics, just to tell you that the technology we use everywhere I've seen in my 28 years as an engineer is actually what we copied from the nature. So in silicon, that's what you use in electronics, right? To do any electronics you want to do, you want to have a transistor and a silicon chips, right? What they do in there is they have these silicon that's structured. It's like a honeycomb. It's like a hexagonal structure. And let me show you. So this structure is what can lead current. It leads electrons. So it's able for electrons to move. And that's what the sun does to our water. So the water within us is structured like that. It has these hexagonal structures. And that means that the water is structured like this, so it can actually have current running. And that's very important for the communication and the liveness of our body, that the current is running. And when we have this movement of energy, you can say, we know that creates a field, because Hans Christian Ørsted, he was the one that coined electromagnetism. So electromagnetism tells us that when there's a current running, you will create a field. And that's the field, that we have around us. And it's really important that we also are aware of nourishing that. So I know, of course, I need to go to the gym and work out for building up my muscles, right? But just as important is actually to be aware of the field around us. Do we have time to nourish that, and how do we do it? It's getting into a meditative state where we can, focus on what's going on inside, because it's from within we create this field. Whatever happens inside has an effect on our field around us. So when we go into, either some people they meditate, and that's fine, or you can actually, whatever is, if you go into the garden, you love to be in the garden, or you go in the forest, or whatever takes you in this state will actually have a positive effect on your field around you. So it's important, I think, to be aware of how this energy works, and when we are aware of that, we can actually understand how we better suit our health, So the water will shape itself according to the vibrations it receives in its crystals. That's how water actually. So the sunlight will structure it, right? But all kinds of electromagnetic energy will form water. So when we know that, for instance, a Wi-Fi is an electromagnetic field, right? But that's not a natural electromagnetic field. So when you measure how water is structured in your body, and you have a Wi-Fi close to it, it'll actually destructure the water. So you see how these structures, these honeycomb layers, will actually disintegrate. And that's when you actually, you can say you're giving your field a hard time, because it then has to rebuild that. So that's one of the reasons that I always shut off my Wi-Fi when I go to bed at night. I don't use my Wi-Fi at night. But just to make sure that I like, to understand that by nourishing this field, we give the best opportunity for ourselves to thrive. All right, so, and the thing is, this is actually what we call resonance. So think about it, when water is present in all of my body, the electromagnetic waves coming in, all the energy coming in, will actually structure the water, right? And so it resonates with the energy coming in. But the thing that connects it to consciousness is then that, our consciousness, we can be aware of our thoughts and feelings, right? So every thought we have, every feeling we have will emit electromagnetic feelings. We can measure. Some people have these where you measure directly on the brain, or you can just measure the field around it. So your thought and your feelings are also influencing your field. And by our consciousness, we can actually be aware of what thoughts and feelings we are diving into, you can say, or what thoughts and feelings are we having, in order to be aware of how are we actually nourishing our field. And I think it's very important that we, of course we have to do all the chores and around the house and everything, but it's important that we do once in a while, or as much as we can, do the things that really makes us happy. So do we see the people we love to be with, and do we do the things we love to do? Because that has a chemical and electrical impact on our bodies. And it's called resonance. It's actually that you end up resonating with the environment you're in, plus what you emit yourself. All right. So I think this girl, Vida Austin from New Zealand, she has done some excellent work, because what she's done is that she's taken, one thing is like if she took a paper and she wrote the number 4 on it, right? Then she took just a petri dish with a thin layer of water, and she would place that on that piece of paper for 30 seconds. And then she would freeze the water, and you had a 4 image in the water. So water storage has a storage mechanism, and it will actually structure itself according to the vibration. So, since we are, 60% water, 70% water, we have that same way of taking energy in, right? So we will actually resonate with our environment, and we will start creating a response to that, you can say. So we know that the water stores information from the field around it, right? So when we think about that, then water actually becomes a bridge between energy and biology. So our cells has a lot of water. Each cell has water in it, right? But it's this structured water. So the energy that comes in will actually structure the water, and it has a profound impact on our biology. So you can say that water is the bridge between energy and biology. That's the way we take energy in, is through sunlight, and also just by moving in the magnetic field of the Earth. Because since we have this plus minus, we have electricity in our bodies, right? When you move something electrical in a magnetic field, you start creating a current. So I think it's pretty cool done, because you think about it, we regenerate in nature. So by moving our bodies in the magnetic field, by being in the sunlight, we actually absorb electrons. And also when you touch the Earth, so my body has a lower electrical potential than the Earth. So when I touch the Earth, when I stand on grass, or if I lay in the sand, I will actually have electrons coming in. Since the 60s, we have walked around in these sneakers, right? And they are actually isolating us from Mother Earth. So if we walk in leather shoes, that's a different what do you call it? Sorry, that's it has a big there's a big difference if we walk in sneakers or in leather shoes, because leather is a natural compound that is able to have electrons, so it actually has electrons going right through it, so you can absorb that electrons. So I think it's important that knowing how electrical we really are has an impact on our health. So we need to be aware of being in nature, because that's where we recharge. But if we look at this, how water is actually structured from energy, and we also be aware of this about our consciousness is shaping our field. So our consciousness is shaping our field, and it's the field that actually creates the environment for the cells to live in. So you can look at like it if you think about it's like a fish, like a school of fish. They will navigate, but they can't talk to each other. They only have this electromagnetic information that they can send to each other, so they can navigate as a one unit. And that's what our cells, they do. They have this field around them that they navigate in. So we can say that the universe mirrors us through resonance. So when we shift inside, the life shifts outside. So let me tell you about what is resonance and how is it that this works from a technological perspective. So if I throw two stones in the ocean right after each other, they will start creating waves. Now these waves will interfere, so they will meet each other at some point. If they're in phase, they will actually create a larger, higher wave, right? If they're in opposite phase, then they'll actually clear each other out. But when we say that we live in resonance with the environment, whatever we hold within will actually be what we will be aware of. Because when you think about it, the frequency I hold will actually be the frequency that will force this wave, this constructive interference within me. So you can say I get aware of the things that I hold within because it resonates with me. So again, if you think about the layers of energy, there's everything out here, right? There's a lot of things in these layers of energy, but we will actually make notice of what we resonate with. That's why you can say when we change within, we actually change how we see the world. So as Søren Kierkegaard, he said, you create life from inside out, and that makes very good sense if you look at it from a physics point of view, because it's actually what we hold within that makes us that we are aware of out there. So you can think about it. If we look at the radio, an old-fashioned radio, you would turn your dial and you could put it on a specific frequency, right? So these radio waves from different radio stations are all over, right? They're all over the field we're in. But it's only the specific radio station that I'm tuned into that I will notice and hear and listen to, right? So it's kind of the same thing that within us, what we hold within will be what we notice out there, because everything is out there all the time, because it's only these energy layers that's out there. All right. So for me, the body is an energy system, and we need to we think of it as we have actually been given our thoughts and feelings and our consciousness to control how we nurture the field around us. So another thing I think that's important to mention is that we come from a world, we come from matter, right? That's how we saw everything. And even Darwin told us, well, it's just a matter of random mutation. So everything is evolved from random mutation. But today we can say he was wrong. Luckily, you can say, because it's actually intelligently that organisms, they work together. So the body is intelligently adapting and responding. There's no random mutation. So this guy, Michael Levin, he showed how cells communicate. So they have an ion channel within the cell membrane that they use to communicate with the rest of the cells, so they get one unity. They need to talk together. We have billions of cells. If they don't talk together, you don't get one body. You can say you need to yourself talk to each one of them, right? But when you change that, what he did is what he actually shut down one ion channel in a cell, and then suddenly that cell started behaving on its own because it was no longer part of the collective awareness. So what he found out is that the cells had collective awareness of each other in order to function. When you shut down the ability of one cell to communicate with the others, you end up with a cell that's navigating on its own. So it doesn't any longer have the perception of being along, working with the other cells. So what a cell does when it's on its own, it starts actually eating from its environment because it knows it needs to survive. So if you take a cell, put it in a petri dish, and you add food for it, it'll go for the food, right? If you put a chemical that's, that it'll die from, it'll actually move away from it. So each cell, of course, they work individually, but they also work in collective awareness. They're aware of each other. So when he re-established this ion channel in the cells there, they would start working again with the other cells. And he found out there's a great resemblance with cancer. So hopefully in short time we will know how can we actually treat cancer differently. Because If the cells are aware that they're part of something bigger, then they will start work together. And I think that's very important that we know there is this conscious cooperation. So life is not built on fighting for like Darwin said, you had to fight to survive, and just you have to compete. It's not competition. It's not a matter of competing. It's a matter of cooperation. That's how things are built. And I think sometimes when you look around in this world, we need to figure out, as human beings, it's a matter of cooperating, not competing. So let's hope that could grow into our understanding of how things are actually done in this universe. So perception shapes physiology. So when you're stressed, you release cortisol, or if you're having a good time and enjoying and feel comfortable, you release nourishing chemistry like dopamine and serotonin. So we know the chemistry within is actually your consciousness is impacting that, but it includes your biofield. So this biofield is also impacting, as I said earlier, by the whatever electromagnetic waves that we are emitting. And that's actually our consciousness is controlling our thoughts and feelings. I know it's not always easy, even though I'm conscious of a feeling that I'm having. It's sometimes hard to change it, but we are actually able to do it. So animals are different. We have an ability to change the way we think and feel, and that's going to have a profound change both on our lives and our health. So just to wrap it up, everything is made of energy. So this guy right there that she looks at, he's made of energy. Now she sees the guy, as a picture, right? But what actually happens is that the frequency of the man will enter the eyes of the woman, and she will her brain will run through that information, and she will throw up a picture of the man. So she creates a picture of reality. So reality is actually not objective. It's subjective. You need to interpret the energy out there in order to see this world, because it's just energy out there. When I look out here, I can see a lot of people, but in reality, it's just different particles and in different energy layers. It's my mind that's providing the picture. Does that make sense? So when I drive out, and I use this example usually. When I drive in nature and I see a cow, or I see a sign or whatever, the cow is of course there, but it's not standing there as a picture. It's only energy. It's my mind that provides the picture. So if I drive around, suddenly my brain says, I just saw a cow, and it shows me a picture of a cow. That's how things work. You need to interpret what's out here. It's not solid in that matter. So we know that things are actually subjective. There's no objective world out there. We need to interpret what's out there. And what really blew my mind when I read this, because Max Planck, if you remember in the very beginning, I said he was the one that laid the foundation for quantum physics, because he said energy is quantized. There's no analog world here.